I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, May the 14th, brought to you in part by Vitalix. Vitalix is committed to leading the way in how controlled, consistent nutrition is delivered to almost all species of livestock. Get the blue tub. For more information, go to Vitalix.com. I can't begin to tell you everything that happened on Thursday, but it was chaos. And the only explanation for it is a massive fund dump of commodities. And we don't know for sure exactly what that was, but it was no individuals. It wasn't a group of individuals, but it was managed money that decided to dump everything. We started out in the morning on Thursday with everything just kind of typical on a day after a very bearish supply and demand grain report. We were rocking along there, and people were buying cattle and your cash feeder cattle sales, and everything was going on. We still need to trade quite a few cattle in the northern plains and the Midwest, which they've been leading the way for the last few months, but the southern plains, well, namely Texas, has pretty much finished up their trade for the week. But fairly early in the morning, we noted that there were no bids out. There were bids out all day, pretty much on Tuesday and Wednesday for cattle in Nebraska and Iowa and places like that. But no bids to start the day out and working deep into the morning on Thursday. And then all of a sudden, things started happening. We had another update to come out. Every day it seems we get another update on what we're supposed to do with the masks. Most of us that live in rural America and mostly in the agriculture sector, we haven't been wearing masks, if at all, for a long time. So we haven't been worried too much about what your inner cities do and your liberal areas do with the mask. But now they're saying you can just take the masks off, and as long as you've been vaccinated. It's just another ploy to try to get more people vaccinated, whether or not they live through the COVID and have the antibodies to prove it or not, but just basically wanting to get everybody vaccinated. But not sure if that had an effect, but it may have had some effect. It's all about inflation, and your funds have been betting on inflation, and they've been betting right here for the last several weeks going forward. So all of our big commodities have been sharply higher. They've been heavily invested in oil as it's gone up, lumber, which has really gone up, your grains and all the like, but everything that people need, which is a commodity. Well, so apparently there had to be a ransom paid to the hackers that shut down the pipeline that cut the East Coast off of their oil and gas supplies, and people getting very angry waiting on fuel that wasn't showing up. So we started getting that line filled back up. It's going to be several days before it gets back to normal, of course, but as that started to happen, all of a sudden at once we started seeing dumping of your commodities, and your commodities have been gaining at the expense of your stock market here for the last several weeks. Well, then all of a sudden it just flip-flopped, and they started dumping your commodities and jumping back into stocks. Stock market starts going gangbusters. Oil, lumber, grains, everything of the like starts going down. Well, live cattle is a commodity going down. Not so much feeder cattle, because it's it still needs further work to get to be a commodity at that level. But they were able to gain some ground. Some your nearby spot market gained some because your grains were down so hard. But as these big funds started dumping these commodities, the algorithms, the computers orders started taking over, and of course not very much of it has to happen before it just races down. And so we saw your commodities just really dump hard, and as we saw that, then we started seeing that affect your cattle market. So I told you there was no bids in the morning on Thursday for cattle. But then ultimately we started seeing the charity bids come back in at a steady level. So for your hedged feeder in the northern plains, that hadn't sold any cattle, and then they start getting 120 bids, that's actually the best thing that's happened to them for quite a while, because they were able to sell at 120, and your live cattle futures nearby June was down $3. So may not have made any money on those cattle, but ended up doing a little better in their exchange on their heads than what they were expecting. But these packing plants just aren't getting enough cattle processed. Yes, it's partly due to how disciplined they are, and they know they're going to get all the cattle. They don't want to run the price of fat cattle up, but mostly it's due to these labor issues, and it all comes back to this new administration. You can pretty much blame all these upheavals in your markets on the new administration and this federal unemployment aid that's going around. And most all of your red states have just decided that they aren't taking it anymore, and they're not giving it out because we can't get any of these lazy workers to do anything. But you can't hardly blame them if you know, especially if they've got kids. If they can sit at home and make the same or more money, you know, why would they go through all the effort to get to work and put in a hard day? But we can't keep your workers in your packing plants going, just like we can't keep them in fast food restaurants or anything else. So, you know, we continue to see bonuses being paid, sign-on bonuses. They're raising the wages, which I guess that's what they were really wanting to do. They were wanting to make McDonald's workers make $15 an hour. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we are seeing your workers being paid more in almost all lines of work. But your packing plants, major packing plants, having a hard time keeping people at work. I'm hearing stories now that you know, that they're giving them vacation days, or rather, if they don't show up for a week or so, and if they come back, instead of getting a pink slip when they come back, they welcome them back in with open arms because they can't find anybody else to do it. So you can show up or not, you've still got a job. And they're just schmoozing to the workers now, and you know, the inmates are kind of running the prison as the way things go, because they just need warm bodies to take those spots on the line and get some of this work done. But we're not able to keep our change speeds going, even where your packers would like to have them, because they can't keep the workers there. But you know, they cannot show up with no consequences. Well, once word of that gets out, well, then you're in a bind. And I've always said, if you're needing employees and you're not sure whether or not they're going to show up, it's worse than not having anybody. If you don't have anybody coming, you can make arrangements for that. But if you think maybe somebody's going to show up to work, but you're not sure, then you're kind of up in the air. And then when they don't show up, then you've got a problem to address right there, and you can't get much work done. But it's just been a really struggling time here. And I tell you what, Thursday was just chaos as far as your markets went. I tell you what, I'm on a lot of different group texts, and talked to a lot of people out there. Nobody really knew what was going on. Why have fat cattle fallen out of bed all of a sudden? They were really down hard, came back just a little bit before the close there, but still sold off really hard when we weren't expecting that at all. You know, and your grains were down hard. You know, the guys in the cattle business are kind of liking that, but we're just unsure why it didn't. Why would your May corn go down 38.5 cents when it wasn't down only 2 cents the same day that they had a bearish supply and demand grain report? It just doesn't make any sense. But like I said, it was just a massive sell-off of all your commodities. But you know, just hearing people that are so frustrated with this, and a lot of these guys are major cattle feeders, you know, pretty influential in the business. But you know, just some of the things that I heard around on Thursday, and these aren't exact quotes, and I'm not going to tell you who they're by, but you guys can kind of figure, you know, that you're hearing the same kind of things all over the industry. But you know, one guy said, every load of fats that I take into a major packer, they're making $35,000 to $40,000. Man, wouldn't I like to have some of that? Over $100 million a day for these major packers that they're making profit. It's unbelievable while your guys are struggling in the cattle business to hold on to what little equity they have left and selling cattle at a loss in most cases. And it's getting so frustrating that nobody really wants to do it anymore. You know, I heard out in the great Northwest, some of those packers out there, and they run on a little different keel than your major packers in your 5-area feeding region. But you know, I talked to a Northern Plains feeder there, and he said, "Hey, I had my packer from the great Northwest call, and they're gonna quit using this 5-area weighted average to kind of base price their cattle with, and they're gonna give us some incentives to feed these cattle. Otherwise, guys aren't gonna feed them that hard. Of course, they want the 80% choice or better cattle, like they've been enjoying here for the last couple of years here. It's unbelievable how the cattle have been grading the last few years, but we've been taking them to these huge weights, which you know, helps make that work. But they're going to start giving more freight adjustments. They're going to start giving more premiums. They're going to incentivize the base price to try to keep those guys feeding those cattle, or else guys are really going to back off feeding those cattle hard, and they're going to still want to move those at lighter weights, and it's really not what those packing plants are wanting as far as a product. Another guy that I talked to and respect, and he backgrounds a lot of cattle, pretty active in the industry, and he was really down in the dumps, and he said, you know, we're in the final stages of total integration. You know, before it's over, every feedlot will be a contract grower, just like your hog people are, and we're just about there, guys. I mean, we're just about there. But every feedlot will be a contract grower, and your sale barns will get to the point where they're just like country buying stations. There's not going to be any individuals out there, any individual feeders, no farmer feeders, maybe not even any of the larger family feeding operations to come in and bid on the feeder cattle. So it'll just be at the mercy of whatever your major packers want to give for those feeder cattle. Yes, I know they don't have their names on the feedlots, the big corporate feeders, but they control everything. I tell you what, you know, you got a major packer there that's got a partnership with a corporate feeder. They know when they buy feeder cattle. They know it from top to bottom. They put them on the schedule, and they know what's coming. And you know, if we get to that point where we just have major packers in there bidding on these feeder cattle, it's going to get scary. We know already how well they are at getting their heads together. They're just going to take turns. They're going to set the price, and your guys that are backgrounding or even raising their own cattle to a heavy feeder weight, they're just going to be at their mercy. You just take it or leave it. And most people will take it because they know that this feeding cattle game is a rich man's game, and you're going to lose your ass if you're not a contract grower, and most of them won't want to be one of those. But it's a really sad situation, and now that we look at it and we see the results of Thursday, like I said, we're so chaotic and so frustrating. I don't know if we're pushing hard enough. I know we had the meeting on Monday, and we're supposed to get a kind of a press release or a statement back from all the associations that were at the meeting of truce on Monday, and we're expecting that Monday or Tuesday this coming week on what they've agreed to and what they're going to push for. And I hope that they got everything through the staff, the leadership staff of the associations. But you know, just pushing for things like minimum mandated negotiated trade. You know, is that enough? You know, if we've got the opportunity to do it, we may have to go in there and ask for a complete breakup of these monopolistic packers. You know, a minimum mandated negotiated cash trade may not be enough to save this industry at the point that we've gotten right now. And don't be mistaken, the things of the last few weeks here where we've seen these box beef cutout values going up so much, and you know, and the packers are saying, we're just raising those prices, which they fix those prices. They set those prices. The box beef cutout values are not negotiated. They put what they want for those cuts, and the wholesale buyers either take it or they don't. But they say we're just raising those prices, trying to cut demand down a little bit where we can make enough of the cuts that they want with this limited labor that we have. And but the hell of it is, that's our product that they're hurting demand on, right in the face of all this this grilling demand, and that's not good for anybody. Whenever you're driving people away from the product that they want. By cranking up the price to gouging levels, you can just say that. But I tell you what, it's very, very frustrating, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the markets here. Look at the board on Thursday. June live cattle futures down $3 at 115.60 now. But, we had some 120 trade in the Northern Plains. That trade out on the hedge looks better than what they've likely been getting the last few weeks. August live cattle futures down 292 at 119.40. Go on your back months of live cattle, all down hard, from down 195 to down 257 as the funds just dump these commodities. Feeder cattle, not so bad. May feeder cattle up 70 cents, which that's nearby, but it was helped some from corn, but you would have thought your back months would have been helped more by the sell-off on the grain market. But May feeder cattle up 70. Of course, it's getting close to time that it's going to have to meet up with what your cash index is, so they can't back it off too much, but it's running at a premium right now. But 137.45 on the close of May feeder cattle. August down just 2 cents at 150.5. But you get on the back months of feeder cattle, which you thought would have been propped up by the sell-off on the grains, they were down 7 to down 87 cents. Let's talk about the grain futures, Chicago Board of Trade. May corn down 38.5 at 719. It's still way high, but that's off a bunch. December, new crop corn down 34 3/4 at 558 1/4. Starting to come back out of the clouds a little bit. How about May beans down 48 1/4 at 1612 1/4. How about November new crop beans down 47 1/4 at 1396 1/2. Your Kansas City hard red winter wheat was down over 30 on all the nearby months, and I mean just every commodity was just a major sell-off there. How about your fat cattle trade? I told you guys that the charity bids stayed out there because your packers need to buy some cattle as much as they tell you that they don't need them. Yes, they wouldn't buy them if they didn't need them, and they're not keeping the change speeds at where they want, but they still need product. They still need to set those weighted averages. How about Iowa confirmed sales of 2,200 on Thursday? 15,500 head for the week, which is a lot lighter than what they've sold for the last several months. 119 to mostly 120. Dress sales 187.5 to 192. How about Nebraska? 3,000 head confirmed on Thursday. 21,500 head for the week. 120 was the price live. 190 to 191 on a dress basis. Kansas, not too much trade. 1,200 head. 8,700 head for the week, and that's really light for Kansas too. All at 119. Texas, they're pretty much done. Only 200 head confirmed on Thursday and 8,000 head for the week, all at 119. I thought it was interesting. I had a Feeder Flash gang member send me some quotes out of a market that I'd never heard of, but I know they're out there. But United Producers Market in Bucyrus, Ohio, has a fat cattle sale there. And it's just been a couple of weeks ago, and it was even happening last week, that we heard that for sure Tyson wasn't going to be participating in your fat cattle auctions, especially on the Eastern Corn Belt and out that direction. But they got back in the market on Thursday there. And United Producers Bucyrus, Ohio, had near 400 head of fat cattle. They bring from 120 to 134. So, they can buy them if you get some competition in there, but, competition may not save us from where we're at right now. But your box beef cutout values continue to increase. We did see select down, so they were kind of mixed on Thursday. So maybe we're getting to the point where those buyers of that product are finally saying enough is enough. I'll just feature pork chops and I won't mess with you guys. But choice cuts on Thursday afternoon, $316.78 up $1.70. Select down $1.25 at $295.91, and I thought for sure we were going to get Select over $3 a pound, but didn't quite do it. Your slaughter for this week, like I said, it's been pretty disappointing, but not terrible. I mean, not as bad as a year ago, but 466,000 through Thursday. That's only 4,000 less than last week, 96,000 more than the same week a year ago. Our cow slaughter has been heavy. And if you guys haven't noticed that, I'll tell you what, like I've been telling you guys, things are kind of lining up like 2012. You know, we're killing cows. It's dry. We don't have places to turn cattle out. We're not keeping any replacement heifers back. All the things that helped lead up to 2014. Of course, we didn't have Memphis Charlie. We don't have Memphis Charlie back there pushing the market like we did back in those days, but we could still see some really rank prices if anybody's left to enjoy it here in a couple, 3 years. But cow slaughter's been big. It's actually at the levels that we normally see in the fall whenever we see the big runs of cows moving. So they're getting those cows from somewhere. And we're having a lot of cow slaughter right now, and the cow plants are really wanting more cows, and they've got a pretty decent price on them. A lot of cows could bring up to 70, but most of our good cows are in the upper 60s. How about your actual slaughter for the week ending May the 1st? Had your average dressed steer carcass weight at 891 pounds. That is a record for this week ever, but it's still 5 pounds less than the last report. So they are coming down, and we're expecting them to continue to come down, especially as they start getting some of the feed bills and things on that, and they start saying, hey, shuck these cattle. I don't care if I've got any primes on them. I don't care if they're only 60% choice. We got to get them off the feed bill. What else is going on? I'm going to be heading out to Paris, Texas, to a Beefmaster sale at the Paris Livestock Auction on Saturday, so maybe see some of you guys out there. And then next week I'll be headed up to witness the last sale ever at the last stockyard ever at St. Joe Stockyards on May the 19th on Wednesday. So you know, as sad as that event is, I'm looking forward to going and seeing a bunch of my old friends up there. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Thursday sit at 133.18, up 66 cents. So we continued to see feeder prices increasing, especially on the ones that took place before we saw the total chaos in your commodity markets. But feeder cattle at Pratt, Winter Livestock, Pratt, Kansas, 3,200 head. Feeder cattle sold $2 to $5 higher. And I was pretty impressed with that, with a good run. They were selling cattle well after we saw all the crazy markets, but still selling pretty well. Calves, heifer calves, $2 to $5 higher. Steer calves, $8 to $10 higher. Now, that's for local demand, guys. They've already got the cattle turned out on the Flint Hills, and talked to a friend of mine going through there, and he said, boy, the Flint Hills really look short. They need 60-degree nights or warmer to really get that grass taken off. They've got the moisture in that area. They're getting some sunshine in the day, but it's just not getting warm enough. It's been a really cool spring all over, and you know, it's kind of got our corn stunted, and it's got our grass stunted, you know, in the places that have moisture. And most places, especially out west, the grass is stunted because it doesn't have any moisture to speak of, and it's just too dry. How about Farmers and Ranchers Livestock, Salina, Kansas, 2,400 head there. I can't tell you what the market reporter there does, because they're completely incompetent. They call a different trend on every 50-pound weight group, and I tell you what, training is what they need for these federal state market reporters. And we've got too many chiefs and not enough Indians, and nobody's doing any training because they won't let them travel because they're still scared of this COVID. Typical government agency. But heavy feeders in Salina, about steady. And calves $3 to $8 higher, and I got that off of the automated market report through Cattle Market Central, which I don't have to rely on some idiot to do that. They can pull the information, and I can look at it later. How about some individual quotes all around the circuit? Love to give you those, and I know you guys like to hear them. How about Siloam Springs, Arkansas? That's a good sale right there, right on the Arkansas-Oklahoma line there. Kenny Wilcox, an auctioneer mentor of mine, a good friend, has been selling at Siloam Springs, sent me a quote out of Siloam Springs on Thursday. 101 head, 427 pound steer calves, bring 196.75. That doesn't seem too bearish there. How about Stockman's Livestock, the West Barn in Dickinson, North Dakota? Got a late quote out of there. 60 head, 980 pound steers. That's scaring the hell out of 1,000 pounds at $124. Tell you what, somebody's got some corn somewhere, because if you're buying that stuff, it's going to cost you $1.40 or $1.50 to put that on, and likely at that time the fats won't bring that 124. So that's quite a gamble right there. How about some other quotes? Bluegrass Stockyard South, Stanford, Kentucky. Been telling you guys, you get into this time of the year where it doesn't matter if those cattle have a lot of hair on them. They've got green yearlings coming in that those guys have backgrounded locally there, buying the calves that come through the sales there locally, keeping them local where they don't have too much trouble with them, and then adding value by making yearlings out of them. And we're seeing the prices on cattle east of the Mississippi bringing just as much or more, and a lot more if you put freight on them, than they bring in the central parts of the United States. But Bluegrass Stockyard South, Stanford, Kentucky, 59 head, 863 pound steers, bring $134. It's a big time quote. The biggest quote that we've seen for a long time I got from Tom Witt out of Three State Stockyards in Falls City, Nebraska. 495 head of yearling steers, weighed 895 and $131. Not many sale barns you see them run 500 head in one whack. Take a hell of a scale to weigh them up. But the best quote that I saw anywhere, and it come out of a sale that I don't talk about all the time, but like to get quotes from everywhere. But your Zach Tran top quote for the day come out of Fairview, Illinois sale barn. The McClure cattle, I've talked about them before. He had several loads in there. They all sold good, but the stick out deal was 65 head, 786 pound steers, bring 150 and a quarter. That's your feeder flash for Friday.